So in the spirit of, I wish I had it on to play for you. You go listen to that song. It's a wonderful song. Start to allow, feel more rather than less. You don't have to have a reaction to everything. My mind can know about the history, but as I sit here in trying to connect to the center of my being, it's as much a function of allowing as it is anything else. So I have to like let myself exhale and land. I've been listening to Thich Nhat Hanh stuff from Plum Village, and he talks about that healing connects, is found dependent on a foundational level on the body's ability to rest. Seems kind of obvious, right? We do, when we're sick, we need to sleep more and drink more fluids, and the body needs to be supported, right? But what if that's not just physical ailment? Right? That learning how to inhabit your body and allowing it to rest is itself healing. I'm also processing a line from him about that he sits in order to feel free. He meditates, whatever, right? That in fact, that rather than thinking you're emptying your mind or you're actually, because the only place you're really free, this would be his argument, would be in the present moment. It's not possible to just live in the present moment, but it is a place of rest. It's a place of healing. So you pay attention to your exhale and let the sack of potatoes that you are, that your mind resists, start falling towards the ground. But that's not the only direction of existence. There isn't just a fall back towards the earth. There's another energy here because prana travels in all directions at once. It's whether you can manifest it. There's a rise here too. That's the truth. So the fall is actually integrated with a rise. So start to feel your sitting bones and your feet. Allow the fall of holding together truth that maybe hasn't always been told to us truthfully, but through the center of it, rise. Because that's part of the truth. Soften the jaw on the inside of the mouth. Start to include more of your body. So for me, because I slump forward so much, learning to drop my shoulder blades down, the back body, doing it while including the sensation of my skin from the base of my neck to the tailbone, letting my spine migrate forward, even though the back side is dropping and the front side is rising. I re-soften the jaw on the inside of the mouth. There's truth here. There's freedom here. Let go of your day. Prepare your mind to do yoga. Something happened. That can be true, and I can lift my chest. Good, and then release. Take the sternum up towards the chin down and over the sternum. Activate without disrupting. So there's more action in your spine, in your rib cage. Do it non-violently so it doesn't disrupt. Learn how to do it without disruption. Stay steady on what's unchanging. Repose. Raise your head up with closed eyes. Open your eyes. Place your hands on your thighs or on the table in front of you. Take some time. Right? Feel the skin on your palms, whether or not you can straighten your finger. Right? Get quiet enough in your judgmental mind that you can feel the subtlety of your skin. So I start with the hands, but I want to feel it on my face too, on the side of my neck. I want to feel and open to the skin that I know needs to drop down the back side of my spine in order to gracefully lift without disruption the front side of my spine. So something is dropping and something is rising. And what's really hard for our minds to understand is that that's the same energy. That within the whole, both things are happening. Truth. Then I can follow it. I can, hey, maybe I'll broaden across my collarbone. As I do that, I'm going to want to press down through the index mound side of my hand. For me to stay steady on the one happening, even though my body is changing. The realization of asana is predicated on a wholeness and an integration, not on particular actions. My breath touches both the emptiness and the fullness. So it's going to be integral. The emptiness is required for me to feel my skin. The bones in my hands on the table help anchor and give structure to the flow of prana. All these things are occurring while I'm breathing. And if you're from Ireland and yawning, you've been busted. Good, and then release. But wait, I feel fatigue in the quiet. It makes me sleepy. Yes. Yep. Especially when you live with a disability. You have fatigue in the quiet, right? Because your body's tired, right? Because your mind's tired. So again, I'm trying to activate. I'm thinking about trying to teach something really difficult, not physically difficult. I'm a little bit getting dissuaded because of, wasn't just the Irish yawn on the call. There were a few different yawns on the call as we got quiet. Yeah. So I've been teaching, so there are different layers. So one of the things that I really got from BK Sangar over the years is that he's teaching on different sheaths of the whole, of the wholeness, right? So I think of it a little bit of an onion, like an onion there. There are different instructions that are more about the outer layers of the onion, and then all those instructions go deeper and deeper and change, right? So one of the, I know it doesn't mean you're on board. I get that for sure. One of the things that I've been saying to you that was for part of your onion, but not the deepest part of your onion. One of the core instructions I've been giving is hitting down through your sitting bones, right? Because I've wanted to activate the lower abdominal lift, because I've wanted you to try to get the simultaneity of the up and the down. But remember, prana is always going in every direction. It's whether you can have it come through you more, right? So I've been saying, hit down through the sitting bones, extend from the inner groin to the inner knee, down to the inner heel. It's a way to activate your awareness of your base. As you do that, lift up from down low up to the center of your chest. So that's how I've been instructing you. But I'm telling you that that's more of the outside. Those are the instructions you give on the outside of the onion, right? The pose starts, every pose starts to get deeper. And the instructions that a teacher gives you are just like the ladder to get you to certain doorways, right? And then you get to open the door and go through it, right? So as you sit here and try to ground and lift your chest, the hitting down and the rising up in the abdomen, in the lower abdomen, I've been making a big deal about that for like a year. So one of the things we've done in the beginning is I have you lift up, because I've been trying to get you to feel space and length in your low back, right? Because it's through the space. If I'm instructing you to activate your will down through the sitting bones and down to the feet, your mind, once it uses its will, actually gets slightly stupider. So it can't feel the lift as well, right? So I've been creating the lightness by having you lift up, bounce around, make length in your low back, right? Right. So I'm just doing that. So and then I come forward and back. I try to get you to go forward and back here, because I'm trying to get you to realize that the lift is received more than it's asserted. That the assertion has to go down and the rise has to be received. Now, so you could do it wrong. Here would be a wrong onion, right? I'm going to hit down with my sitting bones, and then I'm going to just think, oh, and then it's the sitting bones, and that's in one silo, and then the lifted chest is in another silo. So I could hit down and then crank my chest up, right? Like hit down, rise up, right? So I do it too fast, right? That I keep the instructions in separate silos, right? As opposed to an integrated whole, right? So as you feel the down, immediately start the rise and then release and let it drop again. So like try to get them both happening simultaneously, because by the way, that's the truth. That's the pranic truth, right? Your body and your mind are just slow to the game. So I'm gonna make sure, I'm gonna mute everybody again here. We got to try to keep everyone muted, okay, until we're ready to talk. So the down and the up. So now here's the thing I wanted to try to teach, because I've been practicing this. Okay, so go to your tabletop or to your legs, right? And right, so you've got the down and the lift, and you're trying not to overdo your back, and you're trying to think there's a balance here, and trying to feel the sensations of the whole, not just the actions of the mind, right? In your breathing. Okay, so now hit down with your sitting bones, extend from the inner groin to the inner knee down to the inner heel. Activate, go down, rise up. And then, so that's the outer layer of the onion, right? So a more subtle instruction, and then release, right? Is that, okay, this is so hard to put into words, right? And I've heard B.K. Sengar try to do it, and it's taken me years to try to figure out what he's saying, right? And I saw this in a forward bend, but I'm going to do it to sitting. So as you connect to your sitting bones, instead of immediately going to lift your chest, I'm going to want you to do something else. Okay, so think of the spaces between your sitting bone. Okay, let me give you another. I'm inspired to try to teach this by something I saw from Thich Nhat Hanh. Okay, he's talking about sitting as a form of freedom, and he goes, all he does, if you ever watch him talk, he talks so slowly and so simply, right? He says, sit like this, don't sit like this. That's all he does. I could ever command my yoga teaching that well to just, and I totally, guys, he's basically saying sit straight, but he just goes like this, not like this, like this, straight up and down. Okay. So what if the empty spaces inside your body are supposed to be stacked straight up and down? Right? And you're hearing from Thich Nhat Hanh, and he's saying that's the way you got to sit to find freedom. So before you hit down through your sitting bones and then down from your inner groin to your inner heel, be aware of the down, but make sure the empty spaces right above your sitting bones are straight up and down. Right? So you're actually trying to make sure that your will is going to narrow the world, right? So when you hit down through your sitting bones, then you can follow it with concentration down to your inner heel. Don't collapse the world like that. Stack the space right above your sitting bones as you hit down through your sitting bones to your inner heel. Now, I'm not sure what it means to be able to do that, except I can feel it. When you stack the empty spaces above your sitting bones, directly above your sitting bones, does anyone feel that your chest wants to lift a little bit? I do. Holy shit. Right? Like, wait, is this my imagination? I don't think so. This is like when I pause enough to temper my will of hitting down hard down to the sitting bones, down to the inner heel. When I temper that action, that active will, with the idea that there needs to be a mediating influence, a deeper influence of the spaces staying stacked. And so as I push down, I'm not collapsing the empty spaces in my pelvis, and I'm stacking and keeping that space long, and then release. Now, can you see why I've been asking you to lift up? Right? I've been trying to get you to make space for those empty spaces. So now you can keep contact with them before you start hitting down with your sitting bones. So your sitting bones down shouldn't disrupt the stacked sensation of straight up and down in the empty spaces of your pelvis. What the hell? Can't you tell it's a good time to breathe? When you're trying to stack that kind of space, the breath helps mark it. Can you imagine how much harder that space is going to be when we lean off to the right and the left? Because once I go off to the side, right, gravity starts collapsing my space, right? So typically I teach you to open here in order to reactivate the space. Sometimes I have you push back, you're leaning to the right. I have you push back on your left hip to reconfigure the space, the lift, right? So think of all the things I've been trying to show you here, right? But wait, how does anything stack straight up and down when I'm off to the side? I'm gonna go the other way. I'm gonna lean off. So remember, space is relative, right? So when you're leaned off to the side, straight up and down means something different than back to the center than what it means here, right? So now I'm going off to the side because space is relative. And then go the other way again. I'm starting gentle because this takes a lot of attention. And then back to the center, but it's attention that comes from the truth, right? Not from anything moral. So I'm coming forward again. I want more space in my low back. So now, when I'm forward and there's a collapse between my spine and my legs, how am I going to reconvene this space that's stacked? Well, you can kind of see why you'd lift your chest, right? Why you'd hit down through your sitting bones, right? Why you'd spread the space between your shoulder blades and you'd breathe. Don't get bored. It's full of wonder. It's always been full of wonder. Good. And then release. Gonna lift up again. Gonna jiggle. So here's another very weird illusion, right? In 2001, A Space Odyssey, and then in the sequel, 2010, A Space Odyssey, as they fly in, the last line that Hal, the computer, or whatever the woman, the female voice, I can't remember the name of the computer in 2001, I'm having Sal and Hal, right? As they fly into the blackness of the obelisk, right? The empty space. The last line that the computer in 2010 says, Dave, it's full of stars. I love that line. So exactly where you think there isn't control and you don't have a way to like stack the empty spaces in your pelvis so you can feel your feet, don't ever forget it's full of stars, right? And the yogis are trying to show you that the truth of it was that it was full of stars. It wasn't a dead end the way it is for your mind. It never was, right? So I'm going to try to have my upper body, my spine, make space for my sitting bones, allowing that it's full of stars. and I'm going to breathe. Even if I can't see the stars, I'm going to know it. Good. And then, of course, it gets challenged, right? Right. So I'm going to lift up again, because now we're going to challenge it. So there are all these different tricks that Bika Sangar employs to get you to see that it's full of stars, right? So now lean over, take the arm up. So now, as I get caught in the drama of the movement, what part of me stays patient on this space that, unless I can feel the space of the stacking, I won't be able to feel my heels in the same way. That in fact, one of the gatekeepers turns out to be the space that travels through my hips, and I'm going the other way. That there's full of stars between my spine and my femur bones, right? So I'm trying to figure out all the stuff I've taught about shoulder blade in and chest lifted and not falling. It was to help you see that it's full of stars, right? And I'm going to balance my head over my neck, and I'm trying to see the inward and the out. Good. And then release. So the inward and the out in every yoga pose. What the hell? What does that even mean? That there's an inward full of stars and an outward full of more control. That when I hit down through my sitting bones, I also have to not have that cover up, it being full of stars. Because this is the truth, that it's full of stars, without it being barfy potential, right? I'm trying to become something. I'm trying to feel congruent as I'm in this posture, and then release. Gonna lift up again. Gonna try to resist the settling of the sack of potatoes, right? Sometimes the yogi, this is one of like BKX Sangar's lines, sometimes the yogi goes with the flow of nature, and sometimes he or she has to resist it in order to see that it's full of stars. So as I lift up, try not resisting and just collapsing back down in the space that's heavy in your sitting bones. So now this next time you lift up, don't just fall into that same hole. Resist without causing disturbance. Right? Yogi learns how to resist without causing disturbance. Breathe. Good, and then release. One of the tricks that I've tried to employ for you in my instructions over the last couple of years, I've focused it more on the rib cage, right? Now we're going to try to put it into the sitting sitting bones in that space, right? So in the past, I've said a couple times, I've said, lift your chest, and now, feel the outside circumference of your rib cage. And then I've said, now feel the inner circumference of your rib cage. Huh? Yeah, well, it's one of those weird instructions, right? Feel the outside and the inside, but we're making it narrower because we're trying to just say it in terms of the rib cage. So what does it mean to connect to the inner circumference of your rib cage? How do you do that? It's not easy. Good, and then collapse. Go back to your normal life, right? Where you just actually don't follow the truth as much. By the way, following the truth is exhausting, right? It's the reason why we're so deceptive. Okay. All right. So then here's the line that helps me, and it's an image. So Bika Sengar often talks about you have on every cell of your body, you have eyes that point out to the world and eyes that are looking inward. So that's what I was trying to get you when I was talking about the inner circumference of your rib cage. So instead of thinking about it like Oh, how do I get the inner circumference? Allow that as you lift your chest, that's your eyeballs going out, the eyes on every cell. But then at the exact same time, they're eyeballs that look inward towards the spine. So you're allowing that there is sight, both going away from the core and into the core, on every cell. Breathe. When I feel the sight of the eyeballs inward, I feel the subtlety of my breath differently. I feel my body receiving it. When I let those eyeballs be open. Clearly, I don't breathe like that with every breath of my day. But I'm like trying to feel it here. Okay, so now release. So now sitting bones down. Don't push them down, feel them. And then stacking the space. But do it by allowing that space has eyeballs, both inward and out. The lift in your chest both has eyeballs going out and eyeballs going in. The empty space in your elbow, eyeballs out, eyeballs in. The side of your neck, eyeballs in, eyeballs out. Balance your head over your neck. Let the multiple direction align your body. So when I allow that there's eyeballs looking in and eyeballs looking out near the base of my spine, it changes my pose. Now from the eyeballs in, I want to find where my heels are. And then I'm going to use my will. And I'm going to hit down through the sitting bones, down to the inner groin, to the inner knee, to the inner heel. Eyeballs in, eyeballs out. I'm preparing for asana. Good, and then release. So now the extra movement, damn it. Left hand up. Exhale over. Whoa, now here comes a whole bunch of movement, right? And by the way, I'm not able to keep eyeballs in, eyeballs out while I'm moving. Not very well. 31 years into this practice, I'm only okay at that once in a while. But once I'm here, once I have conditions of safety, once I find grounding, once I'm not trying to overwork, when I get into the outer part of the onion into the shape of the twist, I can start to see the inward eyeballs and the outward eyeballs. And as I do, I watch how it changes the effort in my body. Inhale, lift up, exhale, revolve. Now I need my vision soft from my skin out to the world, which actually activates the inward eyeballs. What the hell? Now I'm going back for the stacking of the space between the downward effort of my sitting bones and the rise up through my lower abdomen as I open the center of my chest to receive. Feel the heels. It was always whole. And then release. The truth is that it was always integrated, right? So it's not just the youth that have been told about Pirate Hawkins. Inhale out. We've never taken the time to feel the truth of our own nervous system. Again, while I'm moving, I can work on that. I can try to keep everything lit. I'm being okay. Trying to keep it a little bit lit here. Moving in gravity, letting it collapse, getting conditions of safety. So then I can ignite the both inner and outer vision in my nervous system. Inhale, lift up, exhale, revolve. Now I'm going to find my heels, the space between my sitting bones and what's above it, catch it in the center of my chest. broaden it, keep connected to my heels inward and outwardly. Inhale, lift up, exhale, revolve. Good, and then release, come forward again. All this for just a couple of twists? Damn straight. That's exactly right. All this for a couple of twists. So now I'm trying to go, okay, how do I make the space between my spine and my femur bones? How do I have to look inward and keep my eyes open outward? So all this class comes from the fact that I was sitting after listening to Thich Nhat Hanh and thinking about, holy crap, what's happening in my own space? Why is he seen come back to center? He's seen sitting as freedom. That's kind of a good line for the stacking space between my sitting bones and my lower abdomen. What if it's freedom? Not a dark hallway, not a black obelisk, but it's full of stars. Now I'm going to come forward. By coming forward and taking more weight from my forearms onto my legs, femur bones by the knee, I'm allowing that, and I'm hitting down through my sitting bones, but I'm trying to stay stacked. And if I just hit down with my sitting bones, I don't feel my feet as well. If I actually stack the spaces as I'm forward, as I press down into my legs like it's the earth, I find my feet. Then the upward part of upward facing dog starts to happen. I'm not in charge. I'm receiving. And then release and watch it fall, go out of balance between the rise and the fall. Right? Because the balance between rising and falling is constant. It's always unbalanced. My mind and my body don't get it. So now I'm letting the fall be here. Before I start to lift my chest, I try to let the stacking space. Then I start to follow it. Then I start trying to say, oh, that's why they're telling me to broaden across the collarbones and open the hood of my rib cage. But as you do that, don't steal from the space by your sitting bones, because the tendency is to do this too fast. Like stay in, find the earth, find the space, start the rise. Figure out what the movements are to accentuate the truth of the simultaneity of the rise and the fall, even though my body's receiving it in different positions. That's all asana is. It's about receiving. It's about using my will, good, and then release. It's about using my will in order to refine my receiving. So I'm now going to go back over the back of the chair. Wait. So now when I'm behind the balance point, I can't find my sitting bones as well. Right? So I'm going to have to push on my own thighs a little bit and reactivate that sense of space. And then I'm going to find it. And I'm going to let the rise burst out of my chest here. The fall keep me grounded. The inner and outer eyeballs. So in back bends, the inner eyeballs are harder to track than the outer eyeballs. That's why it helps with depression. It helps me re-enter the world. but I want the inner eyeballs too. Good, and then release. Without the inner eyeballs, the outer eyeballs just disperse like a out of control hose, right? So I'm coming forward again to ground to the spaces that just came out of the center of my chest. I'm finding the earth again. I'm beginning to open up again. Then I'm going to switch to the back bend, start going back. I'm going to ground. I'm going to open. I'm going to watch both inside and out. Oh my goodness. And then come on back. I'm going to find the grounding place. For me, it's I need to put that was a big one for me. So I'm trying to come forward to a grounding place where my forearms are on my thighs. So one of the things that I've said in trainings before is that the problem isn't discovering the truth. It's that there's actually too much. There's only too much for our minds, right? So I'm sitting here with empty mind, going right away towards Shavasana, but in a grounded position. So I can just let the empty spaces stack inside my body. It's going to make me want to soften my jaw. I'm going to pay attention. And then I'm going to come back to a sit, not lean forward. I'm going to come back to a sitting position and practice some symmetry, because that's part of the container. Right? So I'm trying to find not just the balance between each foot, the balance between each sitting bone. That's part of the outer layer. I'm also going to try to ground enough to feel the stacking space. Know that it's happening in my chest too. My head, my neck wants to cut it off by coming forward. So I'm trying to figure out where my head should be. And I'm going to let, in this symmetrical pose, I'm going to try to allow the inner and outer eyeballs. And I'm going to be comforted by someone like Thich Nhat Hanh saying this sensation is freedom. I'm going to trust him. Good, and then release and prepare for Shavasana. So that wasn't Shavasana, that was structure, preparing for Shavasana. What if this space before we got here already had equanimity in it? That was the truth. Soften, close your eyes if you're comfortable. Soften the skin on the forehead, around the temples, the inside of the mouth. Relax the belly to relax the throat. Let the support of your chair nourish the empty spaces. Keep supple. Feel your breath. Don't change it. Thank your body. Thank it again. When you're ready, open your eyes slowly and let the light in. Stay balanced, even with the increase in light.